every day. Time no day, so every day. If you see what happened today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Curatorial-ly Speaking. I am your host Oluwaseyo Oluwake, and today I am joined by a very special guest, the one and only Onome Olotu. Onome, how are you?
I'm good. Very good.
It's nice to
Yeah.
see you. This is the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time that I'm meeting Onome virtually because
It's
we've been
in
IG
face to
friends.
face. Yeah.
So, Onome, for the viewers, just let us know who are you. How do you define your art practice, and what is your favorite food?
Okay, so I'll answer the number one and number three. Number
Okay,
two, I'll answer later.
okay.
First, my name is Onome Daniella Olotu.
Mm-hmm.
I am an Yoruba girl from
Awesome.
Nigeria, and my favorite food, as you can see, I'm a foodie, is bread and tea. Very strange. So my bread has to be soft with hot chocolate and milk that has 7 lives. Like, you get the gist.
I
Mm,
get. So, Onome is part of. I'm sure you're part of people that WhatsApp group chat that they used to soak bread in tea.
don't
I don't
shout
know how
now.
people do it,
Don't say it
but you're
out
part of
loud.
that WhatsApp group chat.
Yeah.
So, Onome, I first saw your work at Sankofa, an exhibition here in Vancouver that was curated
hmm
by Titi Lope Salami and Naya Lewis. And Titi
hmm
was just talking to me randomly one day, and then she showed me your work, and I saw it was now a mask she showed me. So,
Uh,
drawings of different women, with traditional African masks over
yeah.
their face in place of face masks. And I was like, this is very spectacular. Like, who is this person? Who thought about this idea? So, now that you're here, I can ask you, gist me,
hmm
what was that process like? How did you come up with that? What was the inspiration?
The process. Inspiration. Oh God. As you know, it was during COVID-19 in the year
Hmm.
2020, and that was a period of uncertainty. We're all in isolation, and I don't know for other artists, but I can speak for majority of them. Like, artists strive in isolation. That is
Hmm.
where our thought processes occur, and we do a lot of thinking, a lot of, yeah, drafting and all that. That
Hmm.
is where ideas come. We decide on the ones to work with and run with, and decide on the ones to put behind the back burner. So came across a news article on social media, and that inspired the idea of looking inwards. That was how it first started. The
Hmm.
idea needed a substance to latch on, and I picked the face mask because
Hmm.
we were all mandated to wear a face mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I needed a metaphor as an artist because, well, we were already familiar with a face mask, so it was it needed something to stand out. And the idea of using cultural and traditional African masks came.
Hmm.
With time, I expanded my knowledge through research, and now my work explores the paradox of transformation in masking. I don't know if that is big English, but
You
we
break
will
it down
get
for
it.
us. Yeah,
Aha!
don't worry.
I have always been fascinated with African masking performances,
Mm.
masquerades and all that,
Yes.
and the transformation that changes the masker's identity into
Mm.
another character. Once you see me, you're seeing me.
Hmm.
But the moment I put on an African mask and become a masquerade, I am no
Yeah.
longer Onome. I have been transformed into the being or the deity that
Yeah.
is being celebrated at that point. Yeah. So
Mm.
by employing classical African masks to respond to
Hmm.
contemporary issues, I intend to break down the idea of classical African masks as art objects that should
Mm.
only reside in shrines,
Mm.
courts, and museums. Instead, I reimagine them as part of everyday life and
Yeah.
engage them as a metaphor for various emotions and experiences.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
what
Yeah.
the word in simple English, this is like seeing African masks for much more than their aesthetic values, and highlighting and in celebrating the cultures that have strong beliefs in the masking tradition. I know we
Yeah.
we know that there are cultures that lay serious emphasis on their masks. And
Mm.
most of us, because we've moved past the idea of cultural, what's the word now I can use, we've moved past that stage, but there are still cultures that like hold those traditions sacred.
Mm.
So yeah,
Okay, okay.
that is the
That's
serious
a
part of
lot.
it.
That's
Mm-hmm.
a lot on me. And so I think just to say, even in the context of that exhibition that your work was shown, when you think
Yeah.
it was in a museum, when you think of museums and the history of that, the history of collecting or things that are stolen, because they are stolen
Repatriation.
inside,
Yeah.
we have that conversation. But you see, when you see those masks originally, to put them in the glass box, it's very like it was for that time in the past
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
This primitive, you
Yeah.
know how you when you read those articles, this primitive Africa, this
Yeah.
but so seeing them on and
In a
seeing
contemporary
them
light.
exactly in the way you display them, I'm like, okay, this is very very interesting, and it was even more interesting for it to be in the museum at that time. So I want to even move on to just following on from there because I want to move on to
Yeah.
your portraits. I see again. I have to ask you again what inspires you because you seem to like this idea of looking at, let's say, old photographs or hairstyles that
Mm-hmm.
maybe people don't wear anymore, and then you
Yeah.
put them on people. So like you did one of Titi, you did one of Pam in Azande. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm pronouncing it very well.
Yeah.
Hairstyle. So I want to ask, why hairstyles again? Why women? Is there a reason why your main subject is always, most of the time,
Mm,
not always?
well, of course, there's a reason. I mean, apart from the fact that art has to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye, it has to have some sort of, what's the word now? It has to have some sort of meaning
Mm,
or weight behind it.
yeah.
My main subjects are mostly women. I choose them as my main subjects, beginning with my first series, because masking traditions were perceived as like they were perceived to be mostly dominated by men.
Hmm.
You would hear the fact you when you hear there's a masquerading event going on, it's mostly men that attended. The women are
Mhm.
either forbidden to like attend such ceremonies, or they are forbidden to even look at the
Yeah, like
masquerade
probably
or the
right.
mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I chose women to highlight and speak on cultures that encourage those women masking traditions. You hear of the Sunday Mende Society and all that. Yes, and also to highlight, um, to shed more light on female ancestorship.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Hmm.
we hear about male deities, but hardly do we hear about female. I know that they exist, but we don't hear much of them. That
Yeah,
is
I
just it.
understand. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, okay. And so I think two things, just following on again, that make your work very vivid are,
Mhm.
there's the faces, there are faces, and they're the
Mhm.
hairstyles, or whatever it is that you are painting. But there's
Yeah.
also faces, fabrics, and whatever it is that you're painting, but there's also the background.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that really caught me. I need to know, I don't know how to pronounce the name of this one. Betsy Misarakan. How do you
Yeah.
say? Oh, okay, so
I do not know.
so that
But
work
yeah.
with the green on green. I remember the first time that I saw. I love patterns. I love looking
Yeah.
at patterns that I think are inspired by like Adire, or that's just my own perception. Adire
Mhm.
or other like cultural motifs, especially
Yeah.
not just Yoruba people. I think all across
Mhm.
Nigeria we have that in different ways.
Yep.
So seeing that, I was like, this person is pairing green on green, like purple on pink, and or brown on brown. Like, how do you think of, because there's one thing for the main subject of the paintings to be conveying that message. There's another thing for the background itself to be a message on its own. So do they mean
Mm.
anything? Those things in the background.
Well, let me just start by saying that picking colors for my paintings is a challenging task on its own.
Okay.
Yes, it is challenging. It is quite challenging because you have to like set the right mood. That is one. You
Mm-hmm.
have to like set the right mood, because you can have a fantastic image or a fantastic figure, and the background would just ruin it and dampen the whole thing. So yeah, that can pose a very challenging task for an artist. And sometimes the background colors are dependent on the fabric colors that I choose.
Yeah.
So well, when you we need something that pops, something that can engage the viewer and foster some happy feeling also. It depends on the artist though, but for me, I need something that can draw your attention
Something
and give
vibrant.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, something vibrant. Thank you. So I said they depend on my fabric, and the patterns are generally an extension of whatever cultural mood I am in.
So which culture? What are your
So,
different cultural moods?
oh
Tell
my
us.
goodness, I can't speak until I am in front of that canvas, and
Yeah.
it's like a spirit that's, yes, that's a metaphor. Please, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
possessed.
No, no,
So
continue. I
yeah,
understand.
so it's like a spirit that like just takes over you at that point and like
Mm-hmm.
um inspires you to, okay, this is, I'm feeling the Yoruba mood, and that
Mm-hmm.
is where I choose patterns from the Adire. And
Mm.
oh, if I am so blessed to be in the Igbo mood,
Mm.
Igbo Queen, yes, that is when you hear me. That is when you see me take patterns from the Ukara fabric. The
Mm.
Ukara, it almost looks like Adire
Mm.
in the sense that it has the indigo pattern
Yeah.
and indigo color and all that. It almost looks like the tie and dye for the Yoruba people too. But yeah, these symbols and patterns are sometimes dependent too on their symbolic meanings. So
Mm.
there's a lot of research, there's a lot of thought processes that go into the patterns I choose. So
Yeah.
I don't want to convey, because as wide as we think the world is, there must be somebody that relates to the culture that I am depicting in that painting. And when I use a pattern that depicts a strange word or
Mm-hmm.
something that contrasts with the painting, I do not want to be called up and asked some serious questions. I do not want to
Yes.
be summoned by the elders. I don't know if you
Yeah.
get my
I
point.
get what you mean. And so you always check to make sure that they are representing what it is that you want them to represent, and they fit, I
Yes.
guess, the overall theme that you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
show in your work. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know. I get that feeling. You don't want to be making mistake because this,
No.
when I think that I always say Nigeria is an active oral society in the sense
Oh
that like all
yes.
our messages, all our information, knowledge is first of all passed across through word of mouth,
Mm-hmm.
but also
Mm-hmm.
these patterns, these motifs, and these like all these things that we see, they too they have their own language, and so you have to bear that in
You
mind
do
even as
not,
you make work so I
yeah. You
understand.
don't
Yeah,
want to pass a wrong information,
you
and
don't want to do that.
trust me, they will call you out. Oh.
Yes. I get that. Okay, thank you for sharing. Like, it's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting to hear that. And then I want to come to also your postcards from dad.
Hmm.
There's Judy Moore in Ikorodu, 1975, and
Mm-hmm.
Gladys in Milan. And do you know when I saw that first and I didn't read the caption
Mm.
on Instagram, I just saw the images and I was like, this looks like it's gonna be my family member. Oh, that they just say let them take picture outside.
You know.
It seems so relatable and so familiar. And so I also found something interesting. Obviously, the postcard stamps, which to me kind of implied that they were being sent somewhere or they were being received. And so I started to think of, having family members that live in different parts of
Yep.
maybe the world. And this is how people keep in touch. This 1975, obviously, there are other things there, but like, postcards were still a thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask, just just me, tell me more about this project and what the significance is. Why did you decide to paint this?
Okay. I would say that first of all, grief is a
Mm,
motivator. I
mhm,
I think I used it as a caption for one of my posts.
mhm,
It's a huge motivator. My dad. He's late. He died in 2015, and I've been struggling with how to make my paintings more personal.
Mm,
Like I've been struggling to okay, maybe struggling is a strong word. I've been trying to like put more of myself into my paintings.
okay.
Okay, like to give it more meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea behind postcards from dad is just focusing on exploring time and memory.
Mm,
I thought of like how to um tell a story of how my dad's life as a young person, and the postcards, the stamps
yeah.
were like it's a way of him like sending me postcards from the past and telling me
Yeah.
how his life was as a young person. Obviously, I wasn't there. He was a young man, so so this is just me reimagining what his life would have been as a young person,
Mm,
and doing that is just me recomposing objects, landscapes, figures, and photos from my family archive and his diary
mm-hmm.
to like create something to give him like imagine a life in the past. In this series, the compositions I imagine as postcards, they're like stories of his life, his travels, and yeah, I know that as a young person, from his stories, he told me he lived in several places. He
Mm,
was just this is small gist. His dad
yeah.
was a policeman, and we know there's a cliche that policemen are like they move from states to states, so they could be transferred any moment. Yeah. So he moved. He had movements and all that, and this is just me exploring and
Mm-hmm.
trying to see how far the project can go.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'd love to see how that continues because um when you talk about time memory, it's a beautiful way I think to explore that in paintings. And like I said, like
Yeah.
even though I'm not even your family member,
you,
I can
you can
almost
relate
see
with
my
it.
family like inside. I can
and the
relate, you know?
and the postmarks, like the postmarks that are like beside or like on the stamps, like they're the things I used to indicate time and location.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Mm-hmm.
when you see it, you know that okay, this postcard was sent from Lagos. For take
Mm.
Judy Moore for
Yeah.
Judy Moore. That's how he called himself, Judy Moore. So yeah, he Judy Moore in Ikorodu. You would know that okay, this was him in Ikorodu, something March something in 1975. At
Yeah.
least it gives the viewer some insight into the work. So you don't just go there and you're like
Like what is
and
this?
okay, moving on.
Yeah, but it's a very beautiful metaphor. One, that these podcasts actually exist, but two,
Yeah,
that it's you in a sense traveling back in time.
in line,
In
yeah.
quotes, to see and to experience his life as he told you. And again, back to the oral
Yes.
thing we're talking about, like this is things that he's already said, and so now you have that in your mind and
Mm-hmm.
you're able to share it in this way.
To
And I
yeah.
genuinely love to see an exhibition of like
Ah,
many more postcards from that.
from your mouth to God's ears.
I think it's a very interesting. I think it's a very the conversation of I started thinking of migration just on a global scale, but I know
Yeah.
it's we can talk about that. There's a lot of threads there that I think people can
Mm-hmm.
really benefit from,
It's
having
okay.
conversations with them. But yeah.
Yeah.
Onome, thank you for being my first guest. This has
Yeah,
been
you're
lovely.
welcome. It's a
I've
pleasure.
enjoyed this. So for our viewers and people listening or watching, if you
Yeah.
want to follow Onome, not if, please follow Onome on Instagram
Please
at
follow me.
article underscore Onome underscore Olotu and check the description box to see a link to her website to see
Mhm.
her work and see some of her work on IG as well. Follow her, continue to keep up with our work. There's some amazing things that you'd see and you'll be refreshed by, as I have. So,
Mhm.
thank you for watching, and until next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Them no say we day, we come night and day. Sister pave the way, so I no hesitate. Brother tell me say, make I no come exclaim. Cause this gist the day, yes this gist the day.